Topic we're talking about today is ethics in AI. So artificial intelligence is being talked about a lot nowadays. I think every single session at some point today probably has mentioned it. We hear terms like generative AI, deep learning, bots, prompts, automations, a lot of different terms being thrown around that evoke a lot of emotions. I mean, this last session that we just had, if you were there, Stefan spoke. He has the company AINAEC, and I do encourage you to check out their website. If you Google AINAEC, it's the first thing to pop up. A lot of interesting tools, new ways that we can advance our technology in our companies and also advance our productivity. So a lot of emotions being evoked. Some of it's excitement. We felt that in our last session. Some of it's worry. Some of it's anger at, no, this isn't going to happen. This isn't real. This is going to go away. It's just a fad. Just a lot of different emotions. So what I feel at the more that I learn is a little bit of worry. I do have the excitement, but there is some worry. And my worry comes from the centralization of power that's coming from this AI. Because who's researching it right now? It's mostly a handful of billionaires, corporations, and the governments. That's who's going to control this, and that's who's been controlling it. I also see concerns over the deepening inequity that's coming from it. And that's specifically for vulnerable workforce. Those in jobs that could be replaced from AI or are already being replaced from AI. Those two concerns are what raise the most for me. So we want to understand artificial intelligence. That's it. We're just going to understand it completely by the end of this. No, it should say have a better understanding of artificial intelligence. Talk a little bit about the basics. Everyone's at a different level of understanding when it comes to what is artificial intelligence, how is it going to affect our lives, and then what are the ethics involved with it. Let's recognize some common ethical dilemmas and challenges we may experience in the engineering world. And then we're going to analyze a case study relating to a design build engineering firm. And then last, I'm going to talk a little bit about where it meets insurability. I am in the insurance world, so when we look at this, we're seeing some problems that could exist in the future that may not have existed yet. I have not heard of a claim relating to artificial intelligence, but there's certainly theorized a lot of different ways there could be one. So let's talk about those. So here's our agenda. Talk about the basics, go through the ethical dilemmas. I've got about 5 of them I want to talk about. We're going to go through that case study and then talk about standard of care and insurability. So, artificial intelligence basics. Let's first lay out what is artificial intelligence and where are we at right now? Where is it? So there's 3 different stages. There's artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI. This is weak AI. It's a stage of AI where machines can only perform narrowly defined set of specific tools. There's no thinking ability. However, that doesn't mean there's no learning ability. This is where we are at with AI right now. This is where we're at. It's called more artificial human intelligence than it is artificial intelligence, because all it's doing is pulling from existing intelligence, mostly from the internet. Then there's AGI, or artificial general intelligence. I like to call it artificial God intelligence, because essentially what that is saying that we're going to create some being of existence that knows everything and can answer everything and can make decisions like humans. It does not exist yet. It has been theorized. That's what a lot of the talk about AI is that there's going to be some machine that does way more than we can do and knows way more than we know. And then last, there's also the artificial superintelligence, would be the most advanced stage of it. That's the stage that you see movies about where they're taking over humanity and all that fear that comes along with that. When you think of AI, I want you to more think of it with the algorithms. I think that's the most familiar you are with. You hear about algorithm all the time. I think a good example would be TikTok. You guys may not have used TikTok before. If you have, you probably have an addiction to it, because the way that algorithm works, it tickles the part of your brain that makes you want to continue using it over and over again. It sees that you like something and it dumps more of that in there. It sees you dislike something and it actually dumps more of that in there too, because believe it or not, we like to watch things we dislike just as much as we like to watch things that we like. That emotion that it invokes keeps us coming back over and over and over again. So of the architectural and engineering firms that we surveyed, about 5% said they're currently using AI in some daily operation. Pretty low amount. 17% said they don't currently see any useful applications of AI. 40% are intrigued by the potential of AI, but don't currently see any practical applications. And 29% are investigating some potential applications. These numbers are changing rapidly, but it is something, if anything you take away, it's something you should be tracking. Some of the most common activities firms reported that they're using is providing design options, so conceptual design or development, marketing and development. We also heard a lot about emails, creating different better usage of your emails, and maybe typing an email, putting it into AI, making it sound better, sending it back. Heard quite a bit of that. But the interesting part is 90% expect an increase of usage over the next 3 years. I would bet that number is close to 100% what we're seeing nowadays. What's interesting is AI could give a competitive advantage to smaller sized firms, which is unique. A lot of times when new technologies come out, it's designed for the larger firms and it kind of trickles down to the smaller firms. But this one, it could give a competitive advantage to the smaller firms because the faster you can implement things, the faster you can compete. And sometimes these small firms that didn't have the capabilities because of the small staffs to go on larger projects, with the productivity that can be increased from AI, can now compete on larger products. So if you're a smaller organization out there, it's especially important for you, and it could be a very large opportunity for you. These are the ethical dilemmas I want to talk about. Bias and fairness, accountability and responsibility, job displacement and economic impact, long-term impact and safety, and then the intellectual property and ownership. So the first one's the big one. I mean, this is the one that I could do the entire presentation on. It's being talked about a ton, is the bias involved in it. And now this isn't an intentional bias. It's not like the creators of these different AI systems sit down and think, ooh, how can we make this bias by doing certain programming in this software? No, this is just bias that exists in our everyday lives that's being transitioned into these AI models. Why? Because it's not creating, it's pulling from information that already exists. And the information out there on the internet is biased because it was created by us who has bias within. Interestingly enough, the majority of the internet's in English, which also means that a lot of the biases come specifically from our language. Let's talk about this training data. So one of the causes of the bias is training data. It reflects historical data. Amazon had an issue a couple years back where it was using an algorithm for their hiring, and the algorithm pulled their past data and ended up using that to try and make sure they pulled the best candidates. Well, what they found was that data was pulling mostly white men. Why? Tech company, started in the 90s, very, very white male dominated. So when it was looking at the historical data, it was pulling that and causing it to have bias. Now, when they designed it, were they intentionally trying to be biased? No, but in order to look forward, sometimes you have to look back. But with these algorithms, looking back can cause that bias. Another area of interesting would be that little like button that's on Facebook. Such a small feature when they created it that didn't seem to be a big deal. You just press like, what does that do? Well, what it has done, and the algorithm has created, is that like button has caused bias across social media because it makes misinformation be spread easier. It makes it so that information that typically would stay in a small portion can be cast out to a lot of people, especially incorrect information. So that bias that can be created by us liking and promoting certain information that we agree with our own biases can create biases throughout those algorithms. Something good about AI, though, when it comes to bias is that it can help us identify and correct that bias. So just because it exists doesn't mean we just have to deal with it. This AI can help us identify it and catch it and then correct it. All right, let's keep moving on here. Accountability and responsibility. So accountability is essentially tracing AI outcomes to the responsible party. When I think of accountability, I think of explainability, understanding how it works, because you can't hold something accountable if you have no idea how it works. So part of the AI utilization and the ethical manner that we're using it, we need to understand it. And more than just understanding the zeros and ones behind it, but actually understanding the company that we're working with, the funding that it comes from, and also understanding the process where this information's coming from so that we can hold it accountable to our standards of accountability and responsibility. Who built that system and why? The problem is people typically don't understand how it works. We just don't. A lot of technologies like that. How does your phone work? If you got dropped back, if you hopped in a time machine and got dropped back in the 1800s with your cell phone, would you be able to explain to anyone how that thing works? Not at all. But we use it every single day, and we don't feel that there's an obligation to understand how it works. With AI, we do need to have some sort of obligation with how it works because of our human trust that we place in it. As humans, we are very trustworthy. And when it comes to something like AI, we immediately want to trust it because some of the information we see seems correct. It seems more to know more than what I know, so I'm just going to go ahead and believe what it says. But we need to remember that it is a tool and it's pulling from imperfect data from us as humans. Job displacement and economic impact. This is one that's talked about quite a bit. It's funny that when we thought of AI and how could it make our lives better, we thought we want that AI to be doing our dishes and our laundry and all the stuff we don't like to do so we can do the things that we enjoy, like drawing and art and writing and reading. But in reality, what it's turned into is that the AI has gotten really good at doing things like drawing and reading and all the things we want to do, and it's not helping us out very much with things like laundry and all the stuff we don't want to do. So what this displacement is going to do is it could make an economic disadvantage. And a lot of this displacement is going to be on the lower pay wages, which is going to be an issue for those people. So routine jobs, but also skilled jobs. I mean, I'm in the insurance world, and I'll tell you that it makes me nervous as well, too. When I ask the AI some questions that people ask me in the insurance world, and the answer it gives better than what I would have given, makes me nervous for my job. I'm sure there's plenty of things that you guys have experienced with that as well, too. All right, let's talk about the long-term impact and safety. So the facial recognition feature, very interesting feature, useful on your phone. It's nice not to have to do your fingerprint or have to put in a code or anything, but is it an invasion of privacy? And at what line do we draw that we don't want to cross with that invasion of privacy? Would you consider it an invasion of privacy for your employer to read your emails and to be able to go through anything on your computer? Probably not. They do. I can tell you that, or at least they have the ability to. Would we consider it invasion of privacy if they're going through your personal devices and items like that? Of course. So we can find lines where we can draw, but everyone's not going to feel the same about where those lines are. Let's talk about innovation acceleration. As it happens quicker, we've seen this with technology, people can be left behind. And that can be difficult, especially if we're lacking training and we're lacking the ability to make sure that our staff who may not be as tech savvy is kept up and understands the new processes that are coming out. And this could be anyone. I mean, I hear just as much about Gen Zers having difficulties with technology as I do some of the later boomers. So it doesn't matter who you are. This technology is moving faster than anyone can prepare themselves for. So we need to consistently be learning, consistently be following it on there. What are some best practices with safety? Safety is a problem. It's supposed to make things safer. It is. And a lot of the data they'll show you says it does make things safer. But what are the best practices? How can we follow them? So regular audits, that's a big one. How are we auditing? What are we doing to make sure that things are safer? We're going to talk about a case study here in a second that talks about some safety relating to construction equipment and how we can work through items like that. Compliance, how are we ensuring that the safety standards and regulations are being followed? And then incident management. Are we prepared? Do we have a plan in place if something unsafe does occur or something specifically on the job site happens? Let's talk about intellectual property and ownership. And I'm going to circle back on this here in a minute too when we talk about the standard of care and some of the insurability issues. But the intellectual property is a problem with AI because it's just pulling from stuff that already exists. So if we're going to put our name on it, we better be certain that it wasn't just someone's work that AI just pulled out of the internet and slapped on the sheet that we're now using. A lot of people think when they're using AI that, oh, this is just creating material. It's not actually taking proprietary information. It is. It does a lot. It doesn't care. It also can make things up. That's a problem as well, too, that we've seen. There's actually attorneys who were citing non-existent law that they had pulled from AI that they thought was correct. So it could be pulling other people's work. It could be pulling non-existent work as well, too, that we have to keep an eye out for. So what are some of the best practices? Documentation. I think we need to be documenting any sort of utilization that we're using, but also transparency. If we're going to be using AI, how transparent do we need to be? What do we need to share with our clients? What do we need to share with our staff? How transparent? I know sometimes I've had situations where, man, I get this great answer from AI and I just can't send it the way it is because I'm just like, that just doesn't feel right for me that I send this beautiful answer and get all this credit when all I did was literally copy and paste their question into AI. So where's the line? What type of transparency do we need to have? Because it isn't fair that just because we know at first how to utilize it and others don't, that we have that advantage. It's nice, but what type of transparency can we share with our clients and our staff? Licensing, how do those work? Legal consultations, that's always important. And then staying informed, keeping up to date, understanding what's going on when it comes to this AI, and having the best practices, especially with ownership of these devices. Let's talk about this case study here. So this is an autonomous construction equipment. So this is a made-up firm. BuildTech is a leading design build engineering firm specializing in innovative construction solutions. They have developed an AI-powered system for autonomous construction equipment, including bulldozers, cranes, excavators, and the system is designed to improve efficiency, reduce labor costs, and enhance safety. And by reduce labor costs, that means reduce labor and enhance safety on those construction sites. So here's the scenario. During a major construction project, the autonomous system successfully completes tasks at a faster rate and with fewer errors than the human-operated equipment. However, a few incidents occur where the AI system makes decisions that, while not causing an accident, come very close to creating an unsafe situation. These near misses raise concerns about the reality or the reliability and safety of the autonomous system. So what's the dilemma? The engineers at BuildTech must decide how to proceed given the potential safety risks associated with the AI system. They must balance the benefits of increased efficiency and reduce the costs with the ethical responsibility to ensure the safety of workers and the public. So some questions for everyone. How do you guys think the engineers should address these near misses to ensure the autonomous system is safe for use on the construction site? Any ideas? What can be done? Adjust the rules. Let's review the system. What's the root of this? What is the program set to do that's causing near miss issues? All right, what about what mechanisms should be in place to ensure accountability for any future incidents involving the AI system? Is there anything we can put in place? There still needs to be some human oversight, especially when it comes to safety of others on things like the road or construction sites. How should engineers address the concerns about job displacement due to the adoption of autonomous construction equipment? Hopefully it's creating new jobs. Hopefully there's jobs having to do with the AI that people can transition to. But that is going to be a problem. How can we solve that? I don't have the answer for you today, but it is a question to be thinking about and to be considering when you are utilizing and implementing these different systems. Is how is this going to impact my workforce? How is this going to impact the culture of our business? How is this going to impact people's daily lives? How can the engineers ensure that the AI system adheres to industry safety standards and regulations? Again, programming. We need to make sure that we're reviewing what's done on there. We're questioning it. We're not just automatically assuming what's in there is correct. We need to be asking questions. So here's some potential actions. Said some of them. Immediate review. Look at doing enhanced testing, implementing additional testing, validation procedures to ensure the reliability and safety of the equipment. Some transparent communications. That's a good one. Communicate openly to the stakeholders about the incidents. Are we going to hide the safety problems? Are we going to share it? I encourage you to, we need to be sharing it and being transparent. Enhancing the safety features such as emergency stop mechanisms, real-time monitoring systems, and then worker support. Let's develop programs to retain and support workers affected by transition to autonomous equipment. So as a conclusion, we need to be prioritizing safety, maintaining transparency, and addressing the broader societal impacts of those AI technologies from this case study. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the standard of care and insurability. So I'm sure everyone's aware, standard of care, we're performing services in a manner consistent with the degree of care and skill ordinarily exercised by members of the same profession under similar circumstances at the same time and in the same locality. Let's think about that as it relates to AI. What is the expectation for AI utilization right now? I would say almost none. There has not been any claim, or I haven't heard anything where, hey, they didn't use AI, they should have used AI, and because they didn't, now they're in a claim. I have not heard of that happening yet. It will, though. There will be a situation where they say, if this would have been used by AI instead of a human, it would have stopped this from happening. They should have known that, and they should have used AI. And as soon as that happens, things are going to change a lot. We did a story about this, or I shouldn't say a story. We did an article about this for ACEC Illinois about a year ago. And the article was all about how AI can't really identify how it impacts the standard of care. It didn't give a very good answer. Even AI doesn't know. Well, ACEC Wisconsin asked us to go ahead and do the article for them as well too about a couple months ago. And so we're like, okay, well, we'll do the same article. So instead of asking the ChatGPT or whatever system we used, what is the standard of care relating to AI in Illinois? We said relating to AI in Wisconsin. In just over 9 months, the whole article completely changed from AI has no idea to, oh my goodness, look at this phenomenal answer that AI just gave about how it relates to the standard of care and how it's going to be impactful on it and what we could see in the future. I mean, it's remarkable how much this has advanced, how quickly. So something interesting to keep following on. How long do we think it's going to be until there is some sort of requirement that there is AI is part of the standard of care? I mean, if you didn't use BIM or you didn't use some of these products, you would be considered outside the standard of care. When's that going to be for this as well too? Some of the concerns we have in the insurance world relating to you guys utilizing AI. One is the professional services definition. Not all professional liability policies are the same, and one of the devil in the details is certainly the definition of professional services. The longer it is, the better. You want as many possible things included in the definition of professional services because you want everything that you do as a professional to be covered. We have not seen anything relating to AI or artificial intelligence or utilizing artificial intelligence. So if you're a civil engineer and your professional liability has a very short definition of professional services that says civil engineering, that's it. That's all you're covered for. What is it going to consider utilizing AI or providing your clients with AI information or any of that? Is that going to be a covered act? We don't know yet. There hasn't been a claim from it. Could certainly not be. Something definitely to keep an eye on. Another one's that personal injury definition, specifically at the end there. It says unintentional infringement of copyright or patent. Pretty much every information you get out of AI right now is not your information. It's taken from somewhere, usually is copyrighted or copywritten or patented. So how's that going to be impacted? What if there's a claim for copyright and it's like, well, I pulled it from AI. Guess what? You can't blame AI for your problems. The same way you can't blame a calculator for giving you the wrong answer, you can't blame AI for giving you the wrong answer. It's just a tool that you're utilized. There's an expectation that you as a professional are going to be confirming that what you're sharing is correct. You cannot just copy paste it over there. Another area of the policy that we see, and I'm speaking about professional liability, the network security insuring agreement. So claims arising out of a network security compromise that causes a network breach or prevents a third party from gaining access to a network. Could have a relation to there. We're following that closely. Last is that products liability exclusion. The part of any claim based upon or arising out of the sale, distribution of any product developed by the insured or by others under license or trade name from the insured for multiple sales or mass distribution, including but not limited to computer programs and softwares. What is AI? Is that a computer program and software? Is that excluded? Is utilizing that or providing that access to our clients? If we're utilizing a system that is part of our process that is AI, is that considered a computer program software that we're selling, not the actual design that we're selling? All right, so the question in our businesses, to use or not to use? That is the question. Artificial intelligence. So what should we do? Should we prohibit it? Should we allow it? If we're prohibiting its use, it's going to give us control. We can control the risk. We're not allowing anyone to use it. It's not a problem. You're not going to run into issues when you don't have people use it, right? Well, they may still use it. I mean, it's just like the forbidden fruit method. If you say you can't use it, all of a sudden people want to use it. And employees could be tempted to use, and now you don't have any oversight of what is being used. It also could put you at a competitive disadvantage. If you're not using a system that's available because you're worried about AI or the implications of it, or you just don't understand it and you're afraid of it, it could give you a competitive disadvantage with others that are using it. What happens if we allow the usage? We adopt a policy. Here's a couple things to keep in mind. Control the usage. We want to make sure that we have set programs that can be used. It's not the wild, wild west. Yes, we allow AI, but we allow you to use this system, or this system. You have your specific systems that you've researched, you've looked into, you've accredited. And now you're allowing staff to use that. So we're controlling it, even though while we allow it. We want to communicate clearly to employees. I mean, you heard Stefan say, if you were here earlier, there is some turnover at these places where you could have a system and then a year later, that system has been sold to someone else or bought by someone else or completely dissolved. There's so many of them out there right now. We're trying to find the right ones, but it's impossible. So we want to clearly communicate the expectations on the utilization of this, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, and then also have rules within where there is discipline if there's violations of laws or any sort of the expectations that are set out. And then we want to provide an evolving list of acceptable and unacceptable tools. And that term evolving is very important because these things are changing so fast that we can't just set an employee policy in place and just leave it there. It needs to be constantly reviewed at least quarterly to make sure that the tools we're using are still acceptable, understand the changes that are occurring because these tools from one month to the next seem to be evolving and adjusting things. Are they still fitting within our guidelines and what we're hoping to do as a business? But most importantly, have a plan. Don't just hope for the best. We have a plan. We're approaching this as leaders of our businesses, and we're making sure that we have a plan, we have control, and this is how we want to move forward. And then we have a vision of where we hope to be as these things progress. In summary, and I'm going to leave some time for questions here as well too. Look out for the ethical dilemmas. So these biases, they're in every part of our daily lives. They're also in every part of these artificial intelligence. We want to root out these biases and catch them. And AI could be a good tool for that as well too. It's not just creating biases. It also can help us identify those biases and root them out. Accountability, what does that mean? Explainability. Understand what you're using when you're using AI. Where's this information actually come from? How does it get to me? And then what am I able to use it for? Is it just pulling random stuff, or is it actually pulling accredited articles from real valued information? Job displacement and economic impact. That needs to be kept in mind if we utilize this system. And we saw Stefan said it in the other session, there was 8 people doing something for 8 weeks that he said he has a program that can pretty much eliminate 8 people needing to do something for 8 weeks. Sounds great, right? What about those 8 people? What about that work? Is it as good? What about if there's an error on it? Man, you had 8 people doing it for 8 weeks and you switched over to just something that did it in seconds and you didn't think there was going to be problems with it. How's that going to impact the jobs? How's that going to impact things? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying it's something that needs to be thought about is what happens to the people. Long-term impacts and safety. Safety has to be number one. And it's very, very difficult with these things because when you're talking risk, when it comes to safety, reducing the risk is a good thing. But creating new risks that have no accountability for something like the car example. Yes, we reduce the deaths on the road, but we create a whole new issue of, man, a loved one dies in a car accident that was driven by AI and no one can be held responsible. Nightmare. Intellectual property and ownership. It's not AGI, the artificial God intelligence. It cannot create. It can only pull from what exists. And a lot of what it pulls is intellectual property and owned by other people. And it may rephrase it, but it's within there. So new policies we can look at our businesses to mitigate these. Let's monitor for complex situations that challenge ethical standards and practices. Keep an eye out for these. I'm sure there's 100 more I didn't even think of that are going to exist. There's probably going to be ethical dilemmas that you run into within the next year that you have to make decisions on, and keep these items in mind. Let's have control over the utilization by our staff. Do not let it be the wild, wild west. Utilize whatever you want. Have ChatGPT on your phone. Use this one. Everyone uses a different one. You know, we found all these free ones that you should be paying for, but we got them for free. Let's control it and let's have a plan in place. We're constantly auditing for bias, and part of auditing is understanding how it works. So looking for biases, making sure that the algorithm that's being used, if there is one in our system, is not discriminating. And then consider the full impact of these new AI programs. They're great. It can do a lot of neat things. Are they all good? No. Are they all long-term solutions? No. Doesn't mean that we just don't need to train anymore because we can just figure out an AI system to do that. No, we still need to continue with our processes. We still need to continue growing our staff's knowledge, but it is important that we need to have our staff on top of this. It can't be something that's just being ignored. And I think if you take one thing away today, and I think you probably saw it some if you were in the previous session, it's here. We've been saying it's coming. It's here. We're hearing about it. Other firms are using it. You've started using it. Where's it going to go? What are we going to see next? So really, really interesting stuff. I appreciate all your guys' time today. Again, my name is Jake Winkler. I'm with Holmes Murphy, and thank you guys for attending.